Hey y'all, welcome back to Overcompensated, the show for people who are rich in compensation and ready to get richer in life. I'm Alexis Matthews, the Millennial Manager, and today we're talking about the modern career path that confuses everybody, being a multi-hyphenate. I am a sales leader, a media founder, a yoga instructor, a writer, a community builder, and no, don't do it all at once. I do it all on purpose. Some people hear multi-hyphenate and they think total chaos, but I hear design because here's the truth. If you want a life that is bigger than one job title, you have to build it with intention. You need calendar blocks, you need non-negotiables, and you need boundaries that sometimes disappoint other people, but it's better to disappoint other people than to disappoint yourself. In this solo episode, I am pulling back the curtain on how I actually make this work in 2025, not the aesthetic version, but the real version. How I lead a top performing sales team without burning out. Why I still teach yoga when my calendar is already full. How running a media company gives me leverage and impact that I've never had just inside one job. And the practical systems that I use to decide what matters to me, like choosing to host a charity event and what gets deprioritized and how I do it without feeling guilty. We'll talk about the moment I realized I needed an intern even before the business was profitable and why hiring for capacity is sometimes the only way to create true momentum. We'll get into the book that I'm writing and the I don't have time myth that keeps so many of us stuck. And I'll really share the simplest ways that I protect my social life. I integrate it into everything that I do. I invite my friends into my mission. I invite them to my fundraisers, to live recordings, to builds. If it's important and it belongs in my life, everybody who's important to me should be included, especially my friends and family. So if you're listening to this, I'm hoping it's because you're tired of choosing between the version of you that just pays the bills and shows up and does the work and executes versus the version of you that lights up your soul, that feels aligned to your greater purpose. And this episode is hopefully your permission slip to actually create a playbook that works for you. I'm going to give you the exact same filters that I use to determine when to say yes versus no, the weekly cadence that keeps me sane, and the delegation rules that really brought me back to 10 hours a week. And I'll be honest about the trade-offs. Multi-hyphenate doesn't mean more. It means more aligned. It's not about chasing every opportunity. It's about rearranging your life so the right opportunities can find you and you can move with intentionality and alignment and purpose. By the end of this episode, you'll have 3 things: a decision framework you can use today, a time design you can use to test the week, and one courageous conversation to put on your calendar. So let's take a breath. Let's build a life that doesn't force us to overcompensate for a job title. Let's get richer in time, energy, and impact. This is Overcompensated, and I am the Millennial Manager. So let's begin. I want to start out with how I decided to balance 3 jobs, including, being a leader in tech, running molded media, and teaching yoga. So I was never going to sacrifice my corporate career for my dreams and my goals because I love my corporate job. I love having stability. I love having consistency. I know I really thrive in that. And in order to achieve my true financial future and my financial goals, I knew that I was always going to need this. And luckily, I found a corporate job that I am totally obsessed with. I get to lead a team of people that I hired. They're incredibly high performing. They literally make it so fun to go into work every day. And I know a lot of people in tech, had some reservations when we went back into the office. I know during COVID, there was a lot of remote work, and now a lot of teams are expecting in-person work. I love working in person. I love being around my team. I feel like it's energizing. I feel like it's motivating. It allows my home space to be like my home space, except for this office where I actually do all my recording and stuff work. But it also allows my job to really stay at work and stay, in the 4 walls of that, that building. And it's helped me so much to be in a job where I feel empowered, I feel supported, I feel uplifted, I feel balanced. And that is what allowed me to decide, hey, do I want to build something more on the side? And that's really kind of where molded media came to fruition, because I knew I wanted to help people with their careers. But part of the issue with having a very demanding 9-to-5 is that all of the people who are reaching out to me on LinkedIn for career advice and for career guidance, I did not have the time or bandwidth to help them. they would ask me like, hey, do you have like, 15 minutes for like an informational interview or just a conversation to learn more about what you're doing and more about your team? And most of the time my answer was no, because during my 9 to 5, my day is blocked. My calendar is stacked. I am literally either in meetings or executing against projects like the entire day, from the time I get into the office to the time I leave. It's so funny. People make fun of me because I have these AirPod Maxes, and they're like, Alexis, like, we know when you have like your AirPod Maxes on, you are locked in, the, noise canceling's on, you can't hear anything, you're just really, really focused. So all of these people were coming to me asking me for advice about how I accelerated my career. So, being so young, being so early in my career. And I wanted to give them answers. I wanted to give the coaching. I wanted to give the career coaching, and I just couldn't do it. So I started posting more on LinkedIn. And when I was posting on LinkedIn, I was posting a lot about how I was able to, recruit great talent, or how I was able to find great opportunities. And it just made people want more. And I was like, okay, how do I scale this? How do I scale these career resources in a way that makes sense for me? So that's why Overcompensated came about. I wanted to be able to basically just speak about all of the things that I'd learned, because everything that I tell people in a 15 to 30 minute informational interview, I tell everybody the same thing. And so that's where this podcast came from. It's all of the advice that I've been giving for the last decade, just consolidated. And then before I even started the podcast, I started the newsletter because I love writing. When I grew up, I was literally such a big writer. When I was in college, I was writing like all the time. I would write 80-page essays like it was nobody's business. And once I started writing about things that I genuinely care about on, my newsletter, using Beehive, shout out to Beehive, absolutely love them. They make it so easy to launch a newsletter. And then people were actually getting my newsletter and saying, oh my God, Alexis, I love this take, or this really resonated with me today. This really, changed the way that I think about something. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is exactly what I wanted. I don't need to help everybody. I don't need a business that every single person is obsessed with. But I just want to be able to help the people who actually, want my perspective and think that the advice is valuable. So that's really what started Molded Media. And then, I've never been super big into content creation. I never even used to be like an Instagram person really, but I just started getting on TikTok and talking because I, love to yap. So I was yapping on TikTok and people were really following along with it. And that's really where the Millennial Manager was born. Because being, a leader and being a millennial and managing Gen Z, a lot of times I had a lot of takes and a lot of thoughts on what it's like being a millennial managing Gen Z. And so I've just been able to, create this media focused company where its entire purpose is helping people, helping them build their careers, helping them grow careers, helping them create careers that have meaning, and becoming rich in compensation and richer in life. That's what I always say. Yes, the money is important, but having a rich life that you feel, aligned with is the most important thing that you can do. And then on top of that, I'm a yoga instructor. Why do I still teach yoga when my calendar is absolutely full? I teach yoga because yoga keeps me grounded. Honestly, I loved practicing yoga. I started practicing yoga when I was in college. I was taking the train because I was living in Chicago. From Southside Chicago, I was taking the Green Line all the way to the West Loop. If you know anything, that's 2 transfers, and I was going after school, so it would be late at night. Sometimes I didn't get home after doing a yoga class. Sometimes I would do them back to back, or I would do a 90-minute class. I wouldn't get home until 9:30, 10 p.m. on the train going through to Southside Chicago, but it was so important to me. It helped ground me. It made me so focused. I was going through a breakup at the time when I was 20 years old, and it made me feel so confident and empowered. And to this day, I love taking yoga and I love teaching yoga because I feel like I'm helping someone feel more grounded, more centered, more aligned just in their day, in their breath, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, then on top of that, I decided to learn how to teach yoga sculpt, because I also like incorporating weights. And so I did another 50-hour yoga training. To be honest, I've actually done 300 hours of training. Actually, it's probably more than that. I think I've done 330 hours of training between yoga sculpt, and Pilates in the last year. And I have zero regrets. I love it. I love moving my body. I think that for me specifically, if I want to be the best version of myself professionally, I need to be the best version of myself physically. I need to be the best version of myself mentally. And moving your body, yoga, Pilates, whatever your choice is, really helps you bring all those things together and then bring them to other people is my purpose. I want to help. My sankalpa, that's what we call it in yoga, is helping other people progress their practice. And my sankalpa and my, and work is helping other people progress their careers. My sankalpa, my meaning will always be about helping other people progress, and whatever, however that turns out is fantastic for me. It's helped me create a life that feels very, very purposeful, not just profitable, because I barely make any money teaching yoga, but I absolutely love it. I volunteer to teach yoga. If people are hosting events or things like that, like there's small businesses who want to host more in real life experiences, and a lot of them are Black owned businesses. I'm like, hey, if you ever need a yoga instructor, like, no worries, just ask me, please. Like, I want to come, share yoga and this practice with more people, and especially people of color, and especially supporting women-owned businesses. It's just all in alignment. It's everything that I want. And when I really focused on removing external validation and focusing on what felt the most purposeful to me, that is when my life changed. When purpose becomes the driver, that is really what transforms you, and it transforms your ability to be able to connect your purpose. Like, growing up, I was always like, oh my God, I need to be on Forbes 30 under 30. I need to be on, I need to do whatever it is, whatever the big random goal is that's going to get you a ton of like external validation. And then at some point I realized like, that's not actually what drives me. Because at the end of the day, when you get, that kind of like recognition or validation, it's really just like a point in time assessment of like, what have you done? But one thing I've learned being in corporate and being in sales, it's never like, what have you done? It's always, what have you done lately? So as people who continuously evolve, like, yes, it's always incredible to be recognized for, your accomplishments and what you've done. But as long as what you are doing is continuing to evolve, you're never just going to be that one version of yourself that was, not even 30 years old yet and had started something. But my goal is to continuously be starting things and to continuously be starting, movements and initiatives that feel aligned with myself as I grow. Because what I cared about, 10 years ago is different than what I cared about 5 years ago. It's different than what I care about today. And it's going to be different than what I care about, 15 years from now. So at the end of the day, as long as we are continuing to evolve and we're continuing to evolve in alignment with what our true goals are, you are on the right path, and no accolade is going to tell you anything differently than you already know, because you know who you are, you know what you want, you know what makes you feel purposeful and aligned and driven, and that is the only thing that matters. Now, in terms of how do you manage being a multi-hyphenate? How do you manage having so many different things on your plate? How do you manage running a team and running a media company and being a yoga instructor and showing up for your friends and family and trying to be, a good partner and trying to do all of these incredible things, and being a single dog mom, by the way? It is like, there is a lot that goes into this. So I had to really focus on my time management and delegation. And it's been a journey. It's been a learning experience. At the beginning of this year, I was so bad at it. In January, I was working on a ton of projects with a lot of different people, and I was getting to like points where it was like 9, 10, 11 p.m. at night. There were still deliverables that I told people that I would do that I wasn't getting done in time. I was taking long to respond to emails. It was causing me to burn out. It was causing me to shut down. Like, mentally, I was like struggling to do things. I was reaching out to my therapist and saying like, hey, I feel so overwhelmed. Like, I can barely get anything done. And also, I feel like, you have to factor in it's wintertime in Denver. It's very cold. Like, it was just such a heavy period in my life where I knew I wanted to do these things, but I felt like I was actually scared. I was like, do I not have the physical, mental, emotional capacity to do these things and to be successful in this way? Because it's so important to me, and I didn't want to let myself down. And that's when I learned, like, choosing what is the most meaningful to you is always going to be your North Star, essentially. And it's always going to give you direction in terms of like where you want to go. Because a lot of the things that I was agreeing to and a lot of the things that I was committing to, I didn't really care about doing them. I didn't really feel like passionate about them or aligned to them. I was just doing them because other people said that I should do them, or because other people thought that, oh, this is really good. Oh, we should do this because or you should do this because if you do this, then people will think, XYZ of you, that think you're really smart. They'll think you're really talented. And so one of my goals was always to like have a podcast where I could like talk and, share things with people that would have helped me had I listened to them. And when I knew I didn't have enough time to even do that because I was so burnt out, because I was so drained, like my creativity was stunted, that's when I realized I was like, I'm focusing on the wrong things. I'm focusing on external validation. I'm focusing on the things that, won't actually matter to me in the long run. And that's when I started choosing, not even choosing me, but I was also choosing like my own goals. I really knew that I wanted to have a charity event. I knew that I wanted to do a charity fundraiser. I'd never done a charity fundraiser before, but I knew like that is like a goal that I have, and I just started building towards it. I identified the cause that I wanted to support, people experiencing unemployment. I identified some sponsors. I identified venues. I reached out to like 15 venues, and they were all saying they were going to charge me like $5,000 to to rent the venue for the night. I'm like, this is a charity event. I have no money. What do you do when you have something that you are so passionate about and you don't know how you're going to make it happen? You get resourceful, you get scrappy, you get creative. So I found a new rooftop venue in Denver that had just opened like a couple weeks prior. So they had no publicity, no PR. I mean, they were just trying to get their footing and get, start getting foot traffic and getting people in the door. And I said, hey, like, I don't have any money, but I have exposure or people that I can give you exposure to. I will literally invite every single Denver influencer. I will get foot traffic in here. I will get a photographer. I will take videos. I will share all the videos with you. I will basically do marketing for an entire evening, make this venue look totally packed, make it look like the best thing ever. And they were like, open to it. And for the record, I contacted 4 people before I got my first meeting. I contacted their, VIP sales host. I contacted their event coordinator. I contacted, their manager. I contacted so many people, and they were finally like, okay, this girl's literally not going to stop. So let's have a conversation with her. And that's how I got a free venue. But it's like, when you are had that been something that I wasn't super passionate about or I didn't really care about, I probably wouldn't have made it happen. I wouldn't have been so committed to doing every single thing that I could. I showed up at the venue. I was like, hey, I want to meet you all in person. So much so that the girl, was at the front desk was like, oh, it's you again. And I was like, yeah, I'm trying to throw a charity event here. And I made it happen, and it was like so incredible. It was beautiful, and it was so worth it. But I knew if I made this one thing happen, then I would feel accomplished and I would feel happy. And all of the other, and like doing something externally, validating, where it's like, you don't get that external validation, but doing something that's external to you where you can support other people's visions, other people's dreams of their lives. I mean, the money was going to people who are experiencing unemployment. Like, that is one of the hardest things you can do in your life. And I knew that if I was able to do something meaningful to that, then I would feel like so validated in the fact that like I was able to accomplish something that meant a lot. But it takes balance, it takes prioritization, it takes boundaries, and it takes a strong sense of self and your own autonomy, and knowing that you can't be everything for everyone else if you're trying to build something for yourself. And that's okay. You don't have to be the person who does it all for everybody else. At some point, you really have to focus on yourself and your own goals and your own dreams, because at the end of the day, if you're only doing things for other people, you're not going to be fully happy. If you're only doing things to, make other people happy, that's not happiness. Mutual happiness is when you do things for, that you are passionate about, and the people that care about you can see it and they realize it and they value it. But I think everybody should really just be focused on like, okay, what is your purpose? What is your sankalpa? And how does that make you, happy? You don't have to do everything, but you do have to do the things that matter to you. Now, when I think about living a life of just balance and happiness, it always is going to involve my, social life. It's always going to involve my friends. I pride myself on having, a lot of friends from a lot of different phases in my life, and, not outgrowing people, but, really having the people that you care about. I have a smaller circle, but that it's continuing to grow. And the more that I grow into my purpose, and the more I grow into myself, and the older that I get, the more that I feel like I'm aligned with the people that I need to be aligned with and that I should be aligned with. And we have, similar missions, similar goals. I've met, so many friends through like yoga or through professional networking or anything like that. Like, those are the people that I, have been surrounding myself with, and it's been so rewarding. And so if you don't have a lot of time, one of the things that I've been doing, especially since I've been doing way more content creation, living in Denver, there's a lot of, little mini influencer pop-up and things like that. Like, there's one where, we're going to go to like this outdoor, workout class that's run by Berries. And then this like sauna and cold plunge place is hosting us. They're gorgeous. They're called Rock Spas. And then Lululemon is sponsoring it, and everybody gets a Define jacket. So instead of going by myself, I invited one of my friends because I was invited. I was like, oh my God, well, will you come to this with me? That way it's an amazing experience for everyone. Another, girl that I know, she runs a new magazine that's starting in Denver. It's a new fashion magazine. They're hosting an event at at this hotel where they're going to be bringing together a ton of people in Denver, and it's going to be an event to support, fashion designers of color. And so I invited a bunch of my friends and I said, hey, like, let's go to this. It's like, because these opportunities are very career focused. I mean, these are things that are going to help me grow in my, content and media career. But for me, I don't want to do things alone. Like, I don't think you win alone. I don't think that everything that you want to accomplish, you can do it alone. I want to bring my friends along and I want to have fun with them. I actually was at a photo shoot for just a photo shoot, and the girl who was doing the photo shoot says that she puts on small like music kind of events, and it's for independent artists who are just getting established, and she's like, they're like listening parties, they're very intimate, similar to like a So Far Sounds. And I said, oh my god, my friend is a singer, she's working on her album, like, can we host an event for her? And she said absolutely. And that's really what I love about having a media company, is that media is just infiltrates so many areas of life, and it impacts so much of what we do. And so for me, I feel like I'm getting exposed to all of these opportunities, and again, getting the ability to like bring my friends along this, on this journey with me has just been like the most rewarding thing I could ever, imagine. And I feel like reciprocity in relationships is so important, especially as you get older, especially as people, start having their own lives and their own priorities. Showing up is so important, even when it's inconvenient. I have a friend who, hosts these like Denver meetups, and like I could not be busier, but she needed someone to teach a yoga class, and she asked me, and I was like, 10 million %. Like, I believe that what goes around comes around. I believe in generosity. I, believe that putting things out there into the universe, they'll always come back to you. Even someone said that the price of community is inconvenience. And I think that is true sometimes. Like, sometimes if you want to have a community, you have to show up for people, even when you might not have the full energy, even when you might not want to. And again, I'm not saying to like overstep your own boundaries, but what I am saying is, like, when we're thinking about prioritizing, are we prioritizing, selfishly because we like genuinely don't have it in us, or is it because we just don't want to? And again, like, if you really don't want to do something, that's fine. But then you can't really be surprised if, when you need someone to show up for you, they don't. And I learned this lesson in such like a positive way, because I do try to put myself out there for my friends. I do try to show up. I do, even if I'm busy or tired or if it's inconvenient. When it comes to my friends, like, those are the people that are always going to be there for me. And every single one of my friends who was free bought a ticket to my charity event. And the tickets were not cheap, but the funds were going to charity, but they didn't buy them because of the charity. They bought them because they wanted to show up for me. And that is something that I will always be forever so grateful for. And that level of community is going to build your resilience. Those people are going to be there when you're going through tough times. Like, you will have that access, and that is one of the most important things to me. Now, in terms of socials and growing and just bandwidth and growing your career in the digital age, it is so important. I was talking to a recruiter about how if you don't really have a brand on LinkedIn, like, recruiters are not going to be able to find you, because there are so many people who are putting out content and who are growing their brands and who are trying to, build something, and they're documenting it. And even on TikTok, people say, like, if you're a founder, like, you should be showing your story, you should be showing, what you're doing, because it's going to help you just build momentum, build connections. Like, when we think of social media, I think of social media not as a way to get in front of like as many people as possible. I don't need the most followers. That's not necessarily like my goal. It is to connect with people who are intentionally aligned to what I'm trying to do. So if that's, small women-owned businesses in Denver that I can work with, and now I've built, relationships with, and again, like, trying to identify ways where a small women-owned business who has this like really cute these like really cute like golf accessories, and connecting her with the golf group that I'm a part of, to see if that she can do like a pop-up at one of their events. Or if it's identifying a woman who owns like a silk pajamas company and saying, oh well, I just met this photographer, I'd love to film some content for you. It's just making those connections, and then getting reached out by the pajama company, and she's like, oh hey, I'm hosting this meetup for female founders, I think it would really help, because you have a media business that's trying to like help and highlight. You need to think of social media as a way to just build your network of connections and that you can actually interact with. Because I think like likes and views and algorithms and things like that, those are faceless connections that you're not really going to do anything with except for get, I guess, more exposure and more visibility and more like quote unquote clout. But I'm not here for clout. I'm here to make an impact. So when you actually know the founders of these businesses and can actually work with them and can actually, identify their, their gap or their goals or their vision and like actually work to support that, that is so different to me and it's so much more meaningful to me. And even with LinkedIn, I know people are always saying like the LinkedIn algorithm is changing. It's hard to, pin down. It's hard to figure out, like what exactly do I need to do to like go viral or to get like hundreds of likes and things like that. But I realized like I don't need hundreds of likes. Like I hosted my charity event and I thought it was going to be, I thought LinkedIn was going to be the place to publicize it because it's for professionals. It was a professional networking event. It was on a rooftop. But LinkedIn almost pushed it to like nobody who could have actually attended it. They weren't pushing it to people in Denver. Luckily, TikTok's algorithm is much more like location based, and you can just tweak that algorithm a little bit more depending on like what you're engaging with. So TikTok was getting in front of the right people. LinkedIn was getting in front of nobody. But there were a lot of LinkedIn career like coaches or people who do like resume coaching or interview coaching or mindset coaching, burnout coaching, et cetera, who started reaching out to me because they were just like interested in what I was doing. I started building connections with them. I started having conversations with those people. And when I did that, now after the charity event that I'm launching my scholarship where, I want to give the $1,000 that we've raised in addition to 10 hours of career focused coaching to someone who's unemployed. Now I have all of these different coaches who I've gone back and forth with. We've had, Zoom meetings. We've talked about what they do and what I do and what my goals are. And so every single person that I actually connected with on LinkedIn and we had like a conversation, and I reached out to them and said, hey, will you help me by donating 1 to 2 hours of your time for my scholarship? 100% of them said yes. And that blew me away because I realized, again, the goal was not to get in front of, 10,000 people and have all of these impressions, et cetera, et cetera. The goal was to get in front of the right people. And when I asked the right people to show up for me, they did. And that truly transformed the way that I think about social media and is going to really drive how I think about social media for my business 100% moving forward. Authentic connection will always scale more than likes. Likes only get you so far. Similarly to what I said earlier, it's just a pinpoint in time of like, oh, this person had a really good thought at this moment. And you never know if that's going to carry or if that's going to continue. That's not influence. And influence really involves how do you get people to do something, and you get them to do something by getting them to know who you are, to align with your mission, to align with your vision, and by finding people who care about the same things that you do. And if anybody knows about, going viral and how that's not all it's cracked up to be, it's me. I got canceled when I was in Italy a couple years ago. I had 50 million views on Twitter or whatever about my post, et cetera, et cetera. We can get into that another day. You can look it up. But at the end of the day, like, yes, did I get all of that exposure? Yes. Where did it get me? I don't know, like featured in a couple articles and like on the Italian news. I didn't make any money from it. So I don't really care about going viral or, getting a bunch of attention. But, when you're thinking about things that matter, raising money for people experiencing unemployment, starting a scholarship of $1,000 that was raised because of all of the amazing local businesses that donated around Denver, who donated thousands of dollars worth of services that people were able to bid on, and now having a scholarship, being able to offer 10 hours of career coaching to someone who needs it is going to be one of the most impactful things that I think I've done. I thought throwing the charity event was, energizing, but now being able to have like a positive outcome for this charity event and being able to open up the scholarship application, I could not be more excited. I could not feel more just blessed and grateful. And the more that I do things that feel in alignment, the more that I realize what I'm energized by, what I'm excited about, and the more that I risk take, the more I realize like I can take even more risks. Like the next event I want to throw is at the art museum. I am literally manifesting it. I want it to be, to support the like arts for underprivileged communities and just whatever. I'm trying to identify like how we're actually going to like make it happen or how it's going to play out. But again, you taking these risks is really the only option, because otherwise you're just going to sit there with all of your incredible ideas and not do anything and not move forward. So if you're interested in attending any future like charity events, please follow along at Millennial Manager on TikTok or at Molded Media on IG, or even follow me on LinkedIn, Alexis Matthews. There's going to be so many more opportunities to really get involved and get aligned. So when I think about becoming rich in compensation and richer in life, at the end of the day, you still need to have balance. You still need to be able to take care of yourself. You still need to be able to take care of your physical health and your mental health. And one of the things that I realized, I was talking to Victoria Pena on actually a previous episode of my podcast, but she is like a mindset and burnout coach who really works with like high performing leaders and helps them realize their full potential and realize their full capacity by identifying like what their goals are, what's so important to them, like, you know, like where is their control, what can they focus on to really like, you know, have the positive impacts that they want to have. And I would not be the person that I am without all of my coaches, without, you know, my therapists and, you know, like my mindset coaches, and also just like even like my family and friends who, you know, listen to me through all of my idea stages, my growth stages, my growing pain stages. So making sure that you're surrounding yourself with the right community is really going to scale your ability to be effective and to be successful. You know, I mean, when I was taught goal setting, it was health, self, and wealth goal setting. So for health, you know, for me, I try to, you know, cook very frequently. Again, I'm not going to compromise the things that are important to me, like eating healthy, to just work harder and grind harder. That's not the stage of life that I'm in. I don't think that creates, you know, being rich in life. I think that might create rich in compensation, but that's why people say money doesn't buy happiness, because like, have you actually identified the goals that are going to make you happy? For me, it's, you know, being able to like work out consistently, to be able to teach yoga, to be able to go to workout classes, to be able to like cook, to be able to eat healthy, to be able to nourish my body. Like that is what makes me happy. You know, skipping meals or, you know, door dashing fast food or, you know, not sleeping, like that doesn't make me feel healthy. And that's not how you create a rich life. And that's not really, you know, long-term sustainable either. But I have so many coaches, so many professionals. I mean, I get, you know, professional massages once a month. I go to a chiropractor, you know, I go to my workout classes, I go to cold plunges. I really try to take care of my like, you know, mindset. So that's like the health goals. The self goals, like what are the things that I want to achieve in life? Like understanding, like I want to have a life that is rich in friendships. I want to have a life that's rich in travel. I want to be able to have, you know, the ability to pick up and go to another country when I want to. I mean, I'm planning trips this year to Barbados, and you know, my friend and I are planning a trip to visit South America. We're determining, do we want to go to Buenos Aires? Do we want to go to Peru? Like, what do we want to do? You know, I'm planning a, you know, trip with my boyfriend for like a reset, to take a step back, to go to Puerto Vallarta. Like, it's so important to me to be able to, you know, go and experience things and experience different cultures. It's been something that's been a part of my life ever since I was 18 years old. And I, you know, went to Belgium and Paris for the first time. And that's why in college, like literally I studied abroad. I studied in, you know, Paris and Senegal, and did a thesis in Cape Town. Traveling is so important to me, and if like that's my self goal, then I cannot compromise, you know, with that. And then, you know, the third goal here is like wealth goals. Like, what do you want financially? Like, I was able to buy a house by the age of 25, which, you know, not many people can say. I'm very grateful for that, but I worked very, very hard to be able to get to this point. And now I'm determining, like, what do I want to be able to, you know, invest my money in, you know, moving forward and in the future. And I'll touch on, you know, finances and financial planning in a later episode, but really identifying like, what are your goals for building a, you know, wealthy financial future where you feel secure, where you feel like you have freedom. I think that, you know, when people say money doesn't buy happiness, it doesn't, but it does buy you know, flexibility, and ultimately, hopefully, as long as you don't have, you know, golden handcuffs, that flexibility buys you freedom. I think that it's contradictory when you think that, yeah, like you can, you know, have financial freedom, but you're locked down to, you know, your job or your, you know, financial situation or your requirements, or if people are, you know, living outside their means and then they don't have the freedom to do anything because they're just trying to constantly keep up with the lifestyle that they've created. give yourself balance, give yourself space, give yourself the freedom to really focus on like what is the most important thing to you when it comes to your finances, and how do you do that? When I'm leading my team, I always tie their goal setting back to health, self, and wealth, because it really makes it tangible in terms of like, okay, what are you doing now to support those goals for the future? And always being able to tie back to that has just been so instrumental in really helping them have direction that's grounded in their goals, so that they're always moving towards those, and that no matter what step they take, they're always getting one step closer. And even if they take a misstep, their North Star is always there to guide them. And at the end of the day, like, my long-term vision of the life that I want is what keeps me grounded, and that's what I always encourage people to focus on. So I love this podcast being called Overcompensated because of the, dual meaning. I think that, when you're overcompensating in certain ways, it makes it more difficult to live. But when you're being overcompensated, your compensation areas is, overflowing and it's abundant. And that's the goal. We don't want to overcompensate. We want to be overcompensated. And, I want to focus on becoming overcompensated more than ever in so many different areas of my life. I think that a lot of people are struggling, not just in their professional careers, in terms of like, having really strong jobs, but also in, terms of like finding meaning, and finding meaning in their careers. And, what is having a life that's rich really look like? And what does being rich really look like? So that is where my focus is, because being a multi-hyphenate, it's hard to balance it all. I will acknowledge that it's hard to balance it all, but it's not impossible. And especially if you have support, if you have intentionality, if you have guidance, it is not impossible to have it all. So overcompensated doesn't just mean being rich in compensation. It means building a life that feels richer in purpose, relationships, and impact. I hope y'all have so many good takeaways from this episode and excited for next week. See you then. Bye.